You've taught at numerous universities in different parts of the country. Are there any changes in the teaching or learning of public relations over the years that seem noteworthy to you that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, there's several things about sort of the development of public relations, and there's one area sort of as an exception that I'll toss out here because I have a pretty big concern about it, and that's the fact that what I would call the proliferation of public relations education. That we're teaching public relations at an unusually high number of institutions today, and I've been somewhat outspoken about this. That if you it's hard to kind of do the math because some of public relations education is based, such as the programs that you're familiar with at Penn State and my program at Boston University, are based in colleges or academic units that grew out of the journalism mass communication realm of the academy. But a number of other elements of public relations education grew out of what we used to call speech communication departments. In many cases, they've dropped the word speech, but they haven't dramatically changed the things that they teach. And if you add all of those numbers up, you'll find that there's, I've seen some numbers as low as 30,000, some as high as 50,000. I mean, if there's 50,000 young men and women out there studying public relations right now, that means that each year over 12,000 kids are graduating with degrees in public relations. And I've sometimes said that we should find somebody who has the intestinal fortitude to look those young men and women straight in the face and say, most of you are never going to get a job in our field. So I think that's an issue that has to be brought up if we're talking about public relations education. But your question was more related to how has the field changed and has that changed public relations education? And I think the best way to describe that, and of course, being a huge fan of Harold Burson and being in the Harold Burson endowed professorship at Boston University, I do tend to admire a lot of things that Harold has written. And he has described the way the field has changed over the 60 plus years that he's been in the field. And he's described it by saying when he first entered the public relations business in the late 1940s and early 1950s, that essentially what he was asked to do was answer the question that how should we say it? The decision about what to say, the decision about what to do and how to do it, had all been made by others. And the public relations people were almost like the journalists in residence. I mean, they were not involved at all, as they are today, in strategic planning and so forth and so on. We did a good job, according to Harold, in help answering that question. How should we say it? So our counsel was sought relative to what should we say, and progressed upwards. So today, in the nation's most highly successful companies, public relations, or whatever you call the function, sometimes it's called corporate communications, sometimes it's called public affairs, and so forth and so on. But the public relations function, the chief communications officer, the chief public relations officer, whatever the title is, that person is very much involved in the dominant coalition, the decision-making realm of the organization. And so public relations today deals with, what should we do, how should we do it, what should we say, and how should we say it. And I think you'll find that at least the better public relations programs have adapted to kind of follow that development over the years.
The aim of the Arthur W. Page Center at Penn State and of the Arthur W. Page Society is to help individuals become counselors to leadership. How can individuals best prepare themselves for that role?
There are two schools of thought in the answer to this question, and one of those schools is that, well, we're sort of born into the nurturing business. We're kind of, whether or not you're going to be an effective counselor will be determined sort of at birth. The other is that you can learn it as you go along, and I'm very much in the latter school. I think a good word for counseling is coaching. We tend to, the term coaching, certainly in the United States, we tend to reserve only for people in athletic endeavors. But I think coaching is a good word for counseling. And I think we need to develop good coaches who are not only coaching executives, CEOs, CFOs, and other members of the C-suite, but also good at coaching people who report to them, people at entry and second level positions. I think that's important. That there's lots of things we can study in terms of to do this better. One of the things that I'd like to see is a little bit better relationship between some of the schools of business and schools of management, and then some of the schools of communication, because I do think that you are going to be a much more effective counselor if you understand both the management marketing side from the business school, and if you understand the science beneath the art aspects of communication schools, plus other communication techniques that we teach. And I think it's helpful if going forward interviews of the nature that you and I are participating in now address this question, because we need to deal with it. I think historically sometimes, well, if you go back way historically, we used to hire. I mean, the main prerequisite for a job in public relations was that you worked as a journalist. That's not the case anymore. I mean, the main prerequisite to be the physician in the Wild West was that you once worked in a drugstore. And I don't know too many physicians today who have on their resumes that they used to work at a drugstore. So I think that the education and the training of people who aspire to be senior communications officers in corporations and other organizations should involve some education and development in those areas.
Are you seeing some liaisons between schools of management and schools of communications / departments of public relations?
I mean, it's an understatement to say that there are problems in that area. Part of the problems tie around financial. That at most universities, students are lined up to take classes in business schools and in communication schools. I mean, at Boston University, we only accept about fewer than 1/4 of the students that apply to get into our university at the undergraduate level, and for our graduate degree in public relations, it's not at all uncommon for us to have 200 applications, and we only accept 50 of them. So that we don't have a whole bunch of room in our classes to let business students study public relations. The situation with the business schools often is even more pronounced. I don't know what the answer is, but I like to see us to be able to work together so that people who study public relations can have a better understanding of business, and so people who are involved in both undergraduate and graduate courses at business schools can have a better understanding of public relations and other aspects of communication.